Mobile Resistance. The new game mode Flora Menace in version 1.6 is already available. I want to introduce this new game mode in more detail today. In Flora Menace, an aerial battlefield has been unlocked. 3 massive cell matrix spaceships have risen into the air because of the Urillo invasion, but this hasn't stopped the Urillo from continuing its spread. The contamination of the first cell matrix robot lifted the curtains of a new battle with the Urillo. First, about the aerial battlefield. I'm sure you all remember rising into the sky in the ancient secret mode last year. 1 year later, let's welcome the game's second aerial battleground, the Cell Matrix. 5 minutes after the match starts, the Cell Matrix will activate. Once active, players can move to transport cells marked on the minimap, where they can initiate the transport cell to board the Cell Matrix. On the Cell Matrix, you will fight against Cell Matrix robots and other players who have also boarded. Players can get Nacors on the Cell Matrix. It's also possible to get some Nacors by defeating other players and robots, or by picking up Nacors from the ground. Nacors can be used in the Dynahex supply shop to purchase corresponding supplies for use in battle. The battle on the Cell Matrix is divided into 4 stages. Each stage brings certain random robots and terrain changes. In the 4th stage, the 3 Cell Matrix spaceships will combine into one huge ship, where the winners of each Cell Matrix will engage in a final battle. Each Cell Matrix spaceship can accommodate up to 12 players, which means a total of 36 players can join the battle. If a Cell Matrix exceeds the passenger limit, other players will be unable to board it until players leave the ship or are defeated. Cells will shut down 6 minutes after they're activated and cannot be used again, so remember to pay attention to when cells shut down. The fun thing about the Cell Matrix is that battles are random and unpredictable. Enemies are random, weapons are random, and even the environment around you will change. Random enemies. There are 2 types of enemies in the Cell Matrix: Cell Matrix robots and real players. Cell Matrix robots are AI-controlled enemies. After defeating Cell Matrix robots, players will get a certain amount of Nacors and some items, such as armor or shields. These items will help you seize the upper hand in battle. They act differently in combat and have varying amounts of health, so pay attention and remember each type of robot's characteristics when fighting them. In the next episode, we'll elaborate more on the robots. You will face AI-controlled Cell Matrix robots, but real players are the real challenge. Bear in mind, on the Cell Matrix, you have no way of finding out how many opponents you're up against, or when they'll board the Cell Matrix to fight you. This makes battles very interesting, as players can board the Cell Matrix at any time and attack you. So, you must be vigilant at all times. Your enemies will be marked with a red outline. When you respawn after getting knocked out, you'll be invulnerable for a short period of time. During this time, you will have a gold outline. On the Cell Matrix, you have a total of 3 lives, with 150 health and a set of level 3 armor per life. After you've been defeated 3 times, you will have to leave the Cell Matrix. You can keep all the items you had before boarding the spaceship, but you will not be able to take the weapons and items you obtained on the Cell Matrix when you leave. Random weapons. After boarding the Cell Matrix, you will only be able to use the items and weapons allocated to you by the Cell Matrix for the time being. All your equipment on the ground battlefield will be retained and returned to you when you leave the spaceship. You'll be given a random combination of firearms on the Cell Matrix. In each of the 4 stages of the spaceship's transformations, your weapons will be refreshed randomly, based on a fixed weapon type. There are a total of 4 waves. In order, the weapons are shotgun, SMG, rifle, airdrop weapons, and RPG. You will see a blue progress bar at the top of the UI. This indicates how much time you have until the weapons are refreshed again. Remember to keep an eye on this countdown and prepare in advance. Changing environment. The internal structure of the battlefield on the Cell Matrix changes over time. When transitioning from the shotgun to the SMG, the high platforms in the Cell Matrix descend, and you can move through some slopes to reach the top of the high platforms that isolate the battlefield like walls to fight at the top. This puts players' tactical cooperation to the test, as they need to watch out for enemies around the corner and keep an eye out for attacks from the high platforms above their heads. The environment changes for the second time when players' weapons change from the rifle to airdrop weapons and the RPG. This is when the Cell Matrix decisive battle will be fought, and this is when the 3 spaceships will join together. The champions of the 3 Cell Matrix spaceships will engage each other in the final battle. At this time, the high platforms will descend all the way to the ground, and the walls around the central area will all disappear, which means that after the 3 Cell Matrix spaceships dock, the battlefield will become even bigger and wider than before. Before the spaceships dock, players will need to find a terrain that they can use to their advantage to meet the challenge of enemies from other spaceships. Before the 3 spaceships dock, the pillar in the middle of the battlefield is where most of the fighting takes place. This is because Nacors spawn in this area every now and then, which means skilled players can occupy this area in advance and defend themselves from their enemies, and get lots of Nacors. Other than the area around the pillar in the middle, Nacors will also spawn in the central room in the north part of the spaceship. If you fail to make a good spot for yourself in the central area, it will be a good choice to come here. After the 3 Cell Matrix spaceships merge together, the area in the middle will become a new area where Nacors spawn. which means Nacors will no longer spawn around the central pillar of each spaceship. Players will need to try their best to go to the middle of the merged spaceships to fight for Nacors, in preparation for the final battle on the ground. Lastly, players' spawn points are fixed. Enemies will not spawn near players' spawn point. There are some more passages in the area, and it's easier to defend and difficult to breach. If your enemy has too much firepower for you, you can circle around the spawn point to find opportunities to counterattack. This is a general introduction to the aerial battlefield of the Cell Matrix. More details are yet to be uncovered. I will now introduce the battlefield on the ground. As stated above, Flora Menace consists of both an aerial and ground battleground. As the ground is covered with Urilo, some tech items from before cannot be used here. However, you must remember to look out for usable items, such as shields, as they will be immensely helpful in battle. A rejuvenation barrier will form in all areas where the Urilo gather. In these green areas, players will start to automatically regenerate health after leaving combat for 5 seconds. This will make your battles more interesting. Powerful hiding and tracking abilities will become the key to winning battles. Other than the rejuvenation barrier, the Matrix base is marked on the minimap, which is also the base of the Cell Matrix robots. Players can fight the robots here to get more supplies, and they also have a chance to get the Riot Shield. This will prove to be very helpful in combat. Lastly, players can go to the Dynahex supply shop on the ground to use the Nacors obtained from the Cell Matrix to purchase item supplies. The better the item, the more Nacors it will cost. So the key to winning is to purchase items cost effectively. After you purchase items, the Dynahex supply shop will instantly give you an item crate that contains the weapons you purchased. However, you must watch your surroundings carefully when purchasing items, in case someone tries to take the item from you. Okay, that's all for now. It's time for you to experience the exciting battles in Flora Menace mode with your friends.